Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the back office. You're in for a real treat today. We have Nostalgia Nerd's Mega PC motherboard. So he had a little bit of trouble with this motherboard, and that's because he had a little battery leakage. He had some seepage from its battery on the board, and this was at Blackpool. I met up with him at Blackpool and fetched the board off him, and hopefully now, I know it's a little while ago, but now is the time I shall start looking at it. And this little boxy, believe it or not, contains a capacitor that fell off the board. So it's a bit crusty looking. For a bit of fun though, shall we just put the this in our parts tester and see if it is actually still a capacitor? I mean, that's just before we get going on the actual board cleanup. We're going to zoom in on the old parts tester. Hopefully that's working. Here's the component. So I'm going to put that between 1 and 2 on it, and I'm going to push it down on my finger. Testing. I wonder if it's testing my finger. It's a capacitor, 127 nanofarad capacitor. So hopefully that is the correct value. So I'm going to put that back here for later. We'll be using that. Good, groovy. Those parts testers, by the way, are really fun. Go on eBay and have a look. Right, so let's get down to business here. So this is the board. This is the board from Mega PC, and that was Amstrad's foray into the sort of home gaming console market thing, apart from their Amstrad GX thingy, where they were just basically using a third-party IP, which is obviously the Sega Mega Drive. So this had a board that would sit in here, as far as I recall, and it would use some of the features of the board to sort of put the video from the Sega Mega Drive out the monitor, and it was running at a different frequency than the PC monitor, so there's all sorts of weirdness. Now, first observation of this board, and this is kind of a standard motherboard. They did a standardized commercial motherboard as well, based on the same technology without the Mega Drive-y stuff, so it could be the same board really. It's got this sort of general funk over everything. So if we'll just sort of zoom in to one of these components down here. Now you'll see this sort of brownish looking stuff. That's not normal. That's actually some sort of crud on this board. So we will be giving that a little brush. In fact, I've got my perfect brush for that here. And that's that very short sort of hair brush. I say hair as in horse hair or pig hair or whatever it is. And I'm just going to use that to sort of just rub this board, just a little tiny bit of PCB cleaner, just to show you the difference. And I know it's hard to see in the camera light, but it's dramatically different. That is super clean now. In fact, we've got a bit of this sort of rag that I was cleaning something. We're going to clean this edge now. These two have been done. So I'm going to hold this there, and I'm going to wipe the brush off. Right, I'm going to kind of clean it through the paper, so give you just an idea of the sort of filth that's coming off. Oh, I do apologise, getting in front of the camera there, all blurring it up. This is where I'm going to be doing manual focusing, by the way, in future videos. And then you've got that kind of, see, it's sort of a browny colour there on that. It's a kind of a dirty brown. That's what's basically over the whole motherboard. So I'm just going to go through it probably, just sort of give it, I'm going to soak it in cleaner, and let's go around with my bit of tissue, and let's go around, dab it all up, and then we're going to start focusing. After that, we're going to focus on the bit where the battery was that leaked. Shiny, filthy. That's this side of the board done, apart from the battery leaking area where I've got to sort of revisit that, and I've just yet to do this side. But I'm just going to try to zoom in just to show you. Let's see if you can kind of see the difference. So these are the nice clean areas now, and this is over to the scuzzy area. So just have a look at this bit. You see how it's got this kind of yellowy sheen over the pins and the resistors and things, and you come over here, these are nice and shiny. Just continue, get this lot done, and we'll go and fix that. Yeah, I know there must have been a bit of a jump cut there. That's because I've been away. But that's fine. We're going to continue this board and hit it on the head. That's my plan, at least, anyway. So it's all cleaned up. It's still looking pretty clean. I mean, there is a bit of oxidization on some of the other bits. You know, now that it's dried off, I can see some areas are better than others. But to be honest, it's all way better than it was. So I think we're going to probably leave it at that. I think we've persevered enough with that. So what we're going to do is work on this region here, because this is where the battery was and where it corroded stuff. And there's actually 2 capacitor footprints here, which I think, you know, to be honest, you probably don't need because they're just little surface mount things. And worryingly enough, so Peter gave me one of those in a nice container. I basically was measuring one and the other one came off the board. So that just shows you how much corrosion's on there when the actual thing you're measuring fails to stick to the board. However, it measures to be about 120 microfarad capacitor. In fact, I can show you on the screen. Let's do that. It's in the probes now and it's doing testing. And there you go, 130. There you go. And that is pretty much what they look like new. So we have some new ones we can try to swap in. However, I don't think there's any feet here, any pads. So that's going to be an interesting one. And if we can't, I don't really think it matters. I don't think it's a big deal. But what we are going to do is clean up this battery. I haven't got hold of a replacement Varta battery, nor do I think really it's going to be necessary for testing this. However, it's nice to clean this footprint up so that whenever somebody in the future wants to, if this motherboard ends up surviving the operation here, it gives us the good opportunity to just sort of easily put that part in the future. So just going to remove the old legs from the old one. Give it a good bit of suction. There we go. Just poke them through. Get out. Get out. Hopefully they should have a PRAD on this side of the board. What should we use? Yeah, let's use some archery forceps. Got that one off. Not that there's much of a pad left on this side of the board. In fact, there isn't. It's only they're only mounted from the other side. Conveniently, very conveniently for us. So that is pretty good. So is there anything left? All I see is black, and that means it's basically corroded away. There's nothing there because it's been corroded away. But we'll see. Nothing. I'm just looking gingerly around the pads. I mean, there is a possibility, and there is a possibility that you could offset it. So let's say this is this C8, for example, and let's see if we can clean that one up. And I'm not proposing you do this, but you could try it if you're really that desperate. In fact, let's see. I'm just going to see if it's possible just to lift that white connector block out of the way. Sometimes they're not bonded to anything. No, it's not going to go. That would have been nice to remove that. That probably would have been a pain to marry all the pins. So I've got a fiberglass pencil here. I'm using this a lot recently, and I'm just getting in there. I want to give these a little rub down so I can have a closer look. Now, if you'll notice, there's some silk screen there where it would say normally C8, but the actual track from here has actually even gone underneath and lifted that silk screen, so it's really eroded. Let's have a look on this side of the board. There's nothing here. Yeah, hang on a minute. There might be some through-hole vias. I think there's a via there and I think there's a via there. So we've got a couple of ends. I'm just going to clean up the via so you can see it. So you've got one via here and there's one via here. And those are those 2 little dimples right there. So technically you could mount your one end of your capacitor basically on those. Let's see if we can work out though where the other end goes. I mean, that's going to require a bit of probage. So we put our meter on continuity, and that's what that sounds like when it's running. I'm just sort of over here by these capacitors here because I was just seeing just in case there was like a dual footprint or something. Anyway, that's how continuity works, and it sounds good when it's running. So I'm going to put something on the via, for example. I don't know where that really goes. Ah, so that's the via, those 2 pins there, which probably ground. Yeah. So those 2 vias are the ground, because it's probably a multi-layer board. It's not just 2 layers, there's an internal ground layer there. That's why those vias are there. So we've got to find where the other end goes. That's the tricky part though. So I'm just going to see if there's any metal here. To be honest, if there is. Sort of getting excited. To be honest, if there is, and then there's kind of not really any. I can see just a hint of some. There's a bit of track there. There's a bit of track. Oh, oh, oh. It's almost too aggressive. It's so thin. I actually broke some of the track rubbing it. I'll show you it there. You can just about see there by the sea, the little tiny brassy coloured thing. So if you've got that bit of the track there, and then you've got this bit of via, that means you've got somewhere to mount your capacitor. Again, this is a bit aggressive using the old scalpel, but we don't have much choice. We need something very small, pointy, and very hard. Now, I'm not going to be so lucky with this one, but I think it does go off to the right here, underneath that electrolytic capacitor right there. So we've got a couple of potential places here. I'm going to clean up the board. Right, so something to check. I suspect this and this will be the same. Yeah, it will. Cool. Right, first things first though is I'm going to get in there and tin it. And I'm going to just put something underneath this board. I'll try to keep it at an angle for you, because boys and girls at home will have a lot better time really being able to see it if it's at that slight angle. Yeah, it should stay there. Just to show, there's my finger by the way, this is how big we're working. Everything is. Don't move. Bang! Got one there. Come on now. There we go. 2 tinned spots right there. And I want to try to tin it on the via, but I think the via needs more work. So let's get that via sorted. And again, I'll just sort of tilt that slightly so you could see in the angle there. See the little ball of solder there? Little ball of solder there. They're ready. Come on, mister. Mr. Sister. A little scrub. And if you really want to go a bit more aggressive, you do always have the option to go to brass. Brassy. Brass monkey. That funky monkey. Focus! Come on now. Come on now. Here we go. I'm going to put the old camera in the old manual focus now, so we don't do that all blur. Blur. Do you like blur? Come on. Just tin for me. Tin for me. Alright. It's not going to do it. I'm not going to force it. It's fine. We're just going to use a little bit of Kynar. Let's just get our component on. Let's turn this board flat again just for a minute. So we need to get out a couple of these bad boys. It's when you need your tweezers. Oh gosh, it really made a meal out of that. So there's one. Two. And you might see, sugar, where'd it go? I've lost one. Anyway, I was going to say, you might see that these look very similar. what's on there, which is good. And I found it. Found that, the runaway. So we've got those two there now. So all I've got to do is figure out a way of getting them soldered on. So I'm going to turn it maybe this way. That away is going to be my angle of choice. I think that one's in. Blink and you miss it, isn't it? Blink and you miss it with surface mount. Just going to add a bit more solder here. Who doesn't like more solder? And I've got a bit of solder there on the end of that capacitor. Get it off. Oh, look at that. That's nice. It's a nice easy to solder thing there. I'm just going to swap these around. I kind of want this one over here. This one, because it's got that nice big soldery blob on it. Ah! Stay down. I want you to stay there, please. So without the surface tension, you can see that they want to go wherever they want to go, but get it wherever you're happy with. I'm kind of happy with it there. And then I'll be even more happy when this one's down. Go. Cool down. So let's see. Looking good. So I just want to make sure something. I want to confirm. So we saw that we had this pin here, and this pin we assume is a kind of a ground. I just want to check it does go to the ground plane, or at least the wires we had, wherever they are. We had a wire that's going to here. That's not ground though. So where can we pick this up? We want to see where we can pick these up basically. Just double check that's. So they both go to that thing. So we'll see if we can figure out what this thing is. Just by sort of probing around the board. I'm just gonna could just look at the pin out. It's obviously part of the ATX power supply. Just going to hold it off the camera. I've just got my one end of my meter on that pin. That's basically what I'm doing, and I'm just searching for that something that I want to find. Fourth pin down. Good. So that's the fourth pin down, which is this one. Just leave a little mark, a little arrow. It's the one. Fourth pin down. So we just need a tiny bit of Kynar, and I was using my Kynar, the special dedicated, do not use on anything else ever under pain of death, Kynar cutters, and I was using it on something else today that I shouldn't have, so whether or not they still perform on Kynar, who knows, but we'll be testing that now. That's the piece we want. So I'm just going to take it probably off camera for a sec just to strip that down. We're only going to a wire, so we don't need much. That's it, that's all we need. I'll put that back down there. You can see I've left a long bit here. The idea being it's going to bridge over a few of those things. And you're kind of going, oh, but it's long exposed. But yeah, it's long exposed. But who's gonna be touching that? You can always put a bit of glue on it or resin or something if you're really that bothered about someone messing around inside your Mega PC. Just check that now. Yeah, I think I've suitably made it difficult for myself by making it too short. That's about right. So we're going to solder this end. Come on! Again. Make sure you get your fiberglass one if you're going to be doing it on this part of the board. That's it. So there should be a better chance now of getting something to solder. what did Amstrad make these out of? It's like a material impervious to solder. Going to give it one more big old clean. And just for good measure, we're going to add the tiniest amount of flux onto that. I really want to get something to get that activating for me. I'm almost tempted to put my soldering iron up to the max, but I'm not gonna resist the temptation to do that. Nope, there you go, doesn't take. Back to the drawing board on that one. And you know, it's good for you to see that it doesn't always work out. Let's double check. That was a really good one too. We're just gonna look for somewhere else. Would have been nice though. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that bad boy. That's a big old fat PHAT place to put this. Come on. You can't go wrong with that, can you? That is not going nowhere. Nobody touched nothing. I'm just going to keep continuing, assuming my car now is long enough, which I can tell it's not, but it doesn't matter. Let's just play with this. We're playing with the old Kynar. See if we can stretch it out. So close. Did I just see that resistor jump a little bit? Darn. Anyway, it's okay. I think as long as we can get it across to C7, which we just about can, there, I think we can work with it. It's going to be just right. Boom. There we go. Dink, 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 dink. Dink. Dink, dink. Maximum dinkage. Now, just as I said, maximum dinkage. Isn't he the guy who was in Game of Thrones? He played. I don't know what his name was in it. Honestly, I can hardly remember his real life name. I'm hardly going to remember his character. I think his name's Peter Dinklage. So I've got this sort of cross thing going on now. Do I bend it over to that leg, or do I just join it in the middle? Join it in the middle, of course. There we go. It's a bit naughty. It's like Danny Dyer. Danny Dyer stealing an ice cream from a baby on a hot day. That's how naughty it is. And there's still a bit of scuzz on this battery contact here. I mean, dendrites. The dendrites are coming. I think, to be honest, I think it's alright. The track itself, though, looks okay. This track, I've checked the tracks out. Don't see anything wrong with those. And then on the back, it's looking good. So I think, you know, Peter, I reckon it's worth trying out now. I know you said it wasn't behaving. I kind of feel that if I was going to give a reason to this misbehaving, and without, of course, changing all the caps, there's always these electrolytics. You could change all the electrolytics. I would really suspect there's a lot of funkiness going on, basically, on this board, and just noticed a couple of pins actually on this IC that look a bit bent. I don't know, maybe I bent them or not. I really bent. I don't think how I'd have done that, but they're okay. They're still contacting. Yeah. So if there was any sort of main reason, I'd say there's a lot of gross stuff that was all over this board, that gunk. and that gunk had gone in between all those pins and ICs and just everywhere between all the legs. So good old clean might be all that was required, really. But I think it's worth having a go, so I'm going to be throwing this over to Nostalgia Nerd. Woo! Well caught. And I'm sure he's going to go chucking it in his machine and he'll let us know if it worked or not. But there, lots of fun. Thank you for watching.